Hello everyone, welcome to Best Recipes with Sharon. Today we're going to be making market or mall style large pretzels, homemade. You know, the kind that when you're walking through the mall you can smell them baking and you can't help but stop and get one? Well, now you can make them yourself. And just before we get started on the recipe, check out my new cookbook. Alright, without further ado, let's get together a few simple ingredients and we'll get right to today's recipe. So we'll start with about 3½ cups of lukewarm water. Then add about 2 tablespoons of brown sugar that's been firmly packed. Then stir that until the sugar starts to dissolve. Then add 2 generous teaspoons of fast-acting dry yeast. And then 1 teaspoon of salt. And on to adding some flour. So we'll start by adding 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And then I let the mixer do the work, so I use the hook attachment and then beat it until it starts to pull together. And the dough will look a little bit like this, so we can add another cup of all-purpose flour and continue mixing. And mix it until it forms a soft dough. And no matter what dough you're making, most of the time it's good to be careful that you don't overdo the flour. You can always add a little bit more if you need to, but you can see here how it's still a little bit tacky, so that's the way we want it at this point. Use your fingers to pull it out of the bowl and place it on a lightly floured surface. I just work the dough a little bit with my hands and knead it in the flour just enough to make it less tacky on the outside. Dough should be stretchy, and it's still able to stick to your hands a little bit. Okay, so we'll go ahead and grease a large bowl, and then we'll place the dough in that bowl, and we're going to allow it to rise a little bit. So we'll loosely cover it with some plastic wrap, or you can use a warm towel as well, and let it sit for about 20 minutes. And while we're waiting for that, we'll make a bit of an egg wash. Crack a large egg into a small bowl. Make sure the egg is at room temperature. Then melt some butter and add that to the egg mixture after it's cooled off a little bit. You'll need about 2 tablespoons of melted butter. Okay, so we want to sweeten this up a little bit. So let's go ahead and add a rounded tablespoon of brown sugar. Once again, whisk that until it's well combined. And you mix this up just before you're ready to use it. That way it's the right texture. Alright, so back to our dough. Use a sharp knife and cut it into equal-sized pieces, depending on how large you want your pretzels to be. Take each piece, stretch it out a little bit, and roll it like a rope. Now I go ahead and spray the countertop with a little bit of canola oil, because now we don't want to use flour, we want to use oil. This dough is easier to shape if it clings to the counter a little bit, and so the oil will help to keep it from sticking and make it workable. So there you have it, an extra little tip that will make it a lot easier to do. And the rope will be 2 or 3 feet long depending on the size you want your pretzels to be. Be sure and roll it out about half the size you want it to be because it will rise again and be double that size. And it helps to shape it while it's on parchment paper placed on a cookie sheet. That way you can do everything right on the cookie sheet and it's ready to bake. So go ahead and brush it with your egg wash now. And I generously coat each one of them. It doesn't matter if some of it leaks onto the parchment paper because it's really easy cleanup. Now we'll go ahead and use some coarse kosher salt and lightly sprinkle that over the top. Go ahead and place it in a 450-degree Fahrenheit oven, and I place that on the middle rack. And set your timer for about 8 minutes. It sure doesn't take very long in the oven, and they're ready. These are great for snacking on. Now this is the salty version, but if you wanted a sweet version, you could just use butter instead of the egg wash and sprinkle it with a little bit of sugar and cinnamon. And that would be equal parts of each. So whether you like to go salty or sweet, that's up to you. You could do a little bit of both as far as that goes. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, and thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed it, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And thanks for your comments in the comment section. And until next time, happy eating!